Welcome to the News Hour. An intense manhunt is widening tonight for a Texas gunman who killed 5 of his neighbors, including a 9-year-old boy, in a rural town north of Houston.
The shooting happened late Friday night, yet the FBI says they still have 0 leads, leaving the small community and an entire nation on edge. Stephanie Sy has our report.
Wilson Garcia's head hung low as he wept. The gunman who killed his wife and son over the weekend remains at large, potentially still armed and dangerous.
I'm trying to be strong for my kids. My daughter, she kind of knows what's going on, but it's difficult when she comes and she starts to ask for mommy and her brother.
Other children in the home were shielded from the hail of bullets by 2 women who were killed. 5 victims in all, including 9-year-old Daniel Enrique Lasso. Garcia says he had asked his neighbor to fire rounds in a part of his yard that wouldn't wake his sleeping baby. Instead, minutes later, the gunman walked up to the family's home in a rural area northeast of Houston, loading up an AR-15 style rifle. Garcia's wife, Sofia Argentina Guzman, was killed at the front door.
He came and shot without saying anything. Boom, and my wife fell. Then he went inside the house to look for everyone.
The suspect, 38-year-old Francisco Oropesa, is still on the loose. The NewsHour confirmed that he has been deported multiple times and entered the U.S. illegally. He has a previous DUI conviction. The Texas governor offered a $50,000 reward for the fugitive, and the FBI has put up an additional $30,000.
We do not know where he is. We don't have any tips right now to where he may be. And that's why we've come up with this reward, so that hopefully somebody out there can call us.
Authorities identified Oropesa through an identity card issued by Mexican authorities to citizens outside the country and through doorbell camera footage. They've also recovered the AR-15 used in the shootings. The county sheriff dismissed questions about the victim's immigration status.
I don't care if he was here legally. I don't care if he was here illegally. He was in my county. 5 people died in my county, and that is where my heart is. In my county, protecting my people to the best of our ability.
The victims were all originally from Honduras. More than 200 police are going door to door as the search for the shooter stretches to a 3rd day. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Stephanie Sy.
In the day's other headlines, federal regulators seized First Republic Bank and sold its deposits to J.P. Morgan Chase. It's the 3rd mid-size U.S. lender to fail in 2 months. Its market share plunged last week following a mass exodus of panicked depositors. Today, a Treasury Department spokesperson insisted that, quote, the banking system remains sound and resilient, and that Americans should feel confident in the safety of their deposits. Meantime, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is warning the U.S. could now default on its debt as early as June 1st. That's if Congress doesn't raise or suspend the debt limit before then. This afternoon, President Biden called all 4 top congressional leaders to invite them to meet at the White House to discuss the budget on May 9th. Across Ukraine, Russia unleashed a morning volley of missiles which wounded dozens in its 2nd major air assault in 3 days. Ukraine's military said it shot down most of the missiles. But in the eastern city of Pavlorad, strikes turned residential areas into wastelands and left Ukrainians running for their lives.
When I saw another flash, I told my husband to get outside. We were in the corridor when an explosion smashed off 2 doors. I ran outside and saw the garage was destroyed. Everything was on fire. Glass shards were everywhere. Had we been outside, we would have been killed.
Ukrainian officials said today's attacks targeted the country's power network and left nearly 20,000 people without electricity. Back in this country, a surge of snowmelt has brought the Mississippi River to peak water levels in the Quad Cities area of the Midwest. Davenport in eastern Iowa saw the river crest today at more than 21 feet, a few inches lower than expected. Officials are optimistic that flood defenses there and in neighboring towns will hold up. Montana State Representative Zoe Zephyr is suing to be allowed to return to her state's House floor. Zephyr, a transgender Democrat, was barred last month after protesting a ban on gender-affirming health care for minors. Republicans say she violated decorum. In a statement, Zephyr said she was targeted because, quote, I dared to give voice to the values and needs of transgender people like myself. A judge in Missouri has temporarily blocked unprecedented restrictions on transgender health care from taking effect. If enacted, anyone seeking gender-affirming treatments, such as hormones and puberty-blocking drugs, would be required to undergo 18 months of therapy. The rule was proposed by the state's Republican Attorney General, who faces an ongoing lawsuit over its provisions. President Biden welcomed his Philippine counterpart, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., to the White House today amid growing concerns about China's harassment of Philippine ships. It's the first time a Philippine president has visited Washington in more than 10 years. The pair agreed to deepen their country's cooperation on trade, investment, and security.
The United States also remains ironclad in our commitment to the defense of the Philippines, including the South China Sea, and we're going to continue to support the Philippines' military modernization goals.
The visit comes days after the two countries held their largest joint military drills ever in Philippine waters. A Florida oversight board appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis voted to countersue the Walt Disney Company today. Last week, Disney filed a lawsuit to stop the governor's takeover of its theme park district, which the entertainment giant controlled for decades. The feud started last year after Disney opposed a Florida law banning the teaching of sexual orientation and gender identity in schools. Workers across the globe marked this May Day with rallies and marches. In Asia, thousands took to the streets demanding better pay. Nurses in the UK protested their wages and working conditions, but the biggest flashpoint was in France. Demonstrators in southern France torched cars and buildings, while police in Paris used water cannons and tear gas to disperse crowds. They were protesting against President Macron's new pension reforms.
Anger has never been so strong in the country. This day of mobilization is a stinging denial of the strategy of Emmanuel Macron. Our determination is intact. Protests are at a historic level for a May 1st in France.
Meantime, the Canadian government reached a deal with federal workers after 2 weeks of deadlock. It'll raise pay by nearly 13% over 4 years, ending the largest public sector strike in that nation's history. And stocks edged lower on Wall Street today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 46 points to close at 34,052. The Nasdaq fell 14 points, and the S&P 500 slipped more than a point. Still to come on the PBS NewsHour, author E. Jean Carroll returns to the witness stand in the rape trial against former President Donald Trump. A sociologist and trauma expert discusses the culture surrounding guns in America, and Hollywood prepares for a strike that could halt film and TV production.
This is the PBS NewsHour from WETA Studios in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.